Hello and welcome to Books and Beyond. I'm Jimmy Bennett, your host, and Books and Beyond is the show where we help people personify their aspirations. Before we get to my guest today, my very special guest, Larry Zaccaro, who's been on the show almost as many times as I have.
Almost.
I just want to give a brief shout out to the Southeastern Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association. That's
right.
a little while to spit that out.
Yep.
We meet every third Monday of the month at the Groton Public Library about 6:30. And I can't encourage people enough to stop by, come check us out, especially if you want to write or if you have anything to do with editing, publishing, anything to do with the written word. We'd love to have you come and see what we're all about. It's a great place to network. It's a great group of people. A lot of inspiration and a lot of useful facts that you can use, learn how to write. And it doesn't mean that, you have to be even an aspiring commercial author. I mean, there's a lot of stories out there that people should be writing down, family stories and things. And it's a good way to learn, good way to put it all together. So today we have a kind of a great show, something that really interests me. Larry Zaccaro is going to be talking about screenplay writing. He's working on one right now, but I'll let him tell you all about that in a bit. And I think that's like we were talking about. It's almost like the dream of every author, to see their story get acted out in real life, brought to life.
It really is. When we all have these stories and these images in our head that we try to put down onto paper as clearly or as colorfully as we can.
Right.
But then to have it written into a script that somebody else can interpret and depict into a visual image, that's really kind of a pinnacle of the expression of what we're trying to say in our writing.
Right.
So it is.
Yep.
I mean, I'm just getting dug into that process a little bit, but I'll tell everyone about that soon. But it's been fascinating, enlightening, very educational as I really dig into what needs to be done to get this movie screenplay, this script written as succinctly as possible. And I'll tell everyone about that.
All right.
So I could talk a little bit about who I am for a minute.
Please.
So Larry Zaccaro, I've lived in Southeast Connecticut for 35 years now. I came here as a research scientist for Pfizer, did cholesterol lowering research for 10 years, and then I moved into business development, negotiating legal contracts for the company in association with our scientists for collaboration for research and acquiring some of the most breakthrough, cutting edge technology that was out there. So it helped all various research projects. And when I left Pfizer, I got into more creative things since I have this kind of creative bug in me. The first thing that I developed was the game Wordplay. It's a word creation game using cards, so think of a combination of Scrabble and Gin Rummy, where you lay down cards on each turn and you make words or add to someone else's word, keep a running total of points, and at the end of the round, whoever has the most points wins the round. And this cover design, Wordplay, you'll see that upside down and right side up, it is exactly the same word. That's called an anagram. When I came up with the name Wordplay, I came up with this design, and I got the idea from the Dan Brown book, Angels and Demons, where ambigrams were part of the plot. And
Right.
I just noticed that Wordplay could work doing this. So I kind of like that. I designed that, and it's just a fun little extra part of the game. But it's fun. And then after Wordplay was out for a while, and I still sell that nationally, and I sell it at educational conferences.
That's what I was going to say. You do sell a lot of that because it is a good educational, word development,
all ages.
vocabulary development.
Kids learning to read, a family game, a party game, a retirement game. So ages 6 to 100 is not an exaggeration. It's literally for anyone. And it's a little more dynamic and fun than Scrabble. There's a lot more possibilities to make words, and the feel of cards in your hands and laying down cards. Everyone's familiar with that. That's a little fun. So that's been out, and I sell it at, you've seen me at some of the events we do together and at educational conferences that I just spoke at in New Jersey and North Carolina. You know, it's a popular item. You
Yep.
know, it gets a lot of attention. But after Wordplay was out for a while, I had this event that happened to my family, my kids, and all our family at the time, where we were on an orca watching trip off the west coast of Washington State. And my oldest daughter, Lauren, had her flute with her and played the flute on the boat. And she played a slow, haunting melody, and we could see so clearly these two female orcas were swimming, and with each breath they went slower and slower. And when they got to their closest point to the boat, they stopped in the water and sang back to her.
Wow,
It was
incredible.
really a magical moment. And that happened a long time ago, 20 years, more than 20 years ago now. But my partner, Yvette, right now said, one day she said to me, you know, that would make a great children's book. And, you know, bing, light bulb, what a great idea. So within a couple of days, I had a story written. I hired a very good artist, Ariel. I told her what I needed in each illustration, and she crafted all these beautiful illustrations and put the story on paper with the illustrations. And it came out so well, and it is now a published children's book, that it really it
Well,
came
you know,
together well.
that's part of like what I was talking about before. That I think that's so beautiful because that's a moment in your family
Right,
that will live forever.
it will.
Your daughter will have it, her children, their children, their children. I mean, it's a beautiful story, and it's not going to be lost in time.
To keep, and even more of a family connection is Amy, who the title girl is my granddaughter, Lauren's daughter.
Okay.
So Amy is a 8-year-old girl in the story who learns to play the flute, and the only one who wants to hear her is the orca whale swimming by.
You know, I'm 9, 10 generations from now, somebody picks that book off the shelf and says, wow, that was my great, 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 great grandmother. You know, back when there were
Right.
orcas in water.
Right,
And,
right.
stuff like that. You know?
Hopefully it never comes to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but you know, I think that's just absolutely, you know, beautiful.
Thanks. It really is, and people react like you do when I tell them that story and they see it. And as we were discussing it, it's all set up perfectly to be a short animated movie because
Right.
there's music in it, and there's a lot of colorful scenes and characters.
I think there's a lot of people, you know, almost every family has that one or two beautiful moments, you know, that should be recorded,
So
should be put
record it.
down, you know, so
and
not
almost-
forgotten.
Right,
I guess
and
is
almost
what-
immortalized
Yeah.
in that way.
Right.
Right. So that's gotten some attention. I wrote another children's book just a couple of years ago. This one is not based on anything real other than it takes place in the house that I currently live in. It's called Auntie Winty and the Plopes, and the premise for that story is based on my children used to say Auntie Winty, and they used to say Plopes when they were kids, and Plopes especially had no meaning. It was just a word. Well, I gave it a meaning. I made Auntie Winty an elderly woman who living alone, and she's sad, and she's so sad that she doesn't plant her garden. And unbeknownst to her, the Plopes are mysterious fictional animals living under her barn, are relying on her garden to provide them with food. So they plant her garden for her, and she notices. They start developing a mutual beneficial friendship and relationship. And so the story develops around the Plopes planting her garden, and she starts to plant it every year. And they never contact each other. They never actually meet, but they know each other are there, and they support each other. So it's sort of a Shoemaker and the Elves kind of a feel to it,
Right.
but it takes place right here in southeastern Connecticut in an old farmhouse with a barn. And so that's just another fun children's story.
Right.
And also, I've written 2 novels. The first one I'll tell you about is a romantic comedy called Chandler's List. Now, that's an ironic name, but it is strictly a comedy, and it also takes place right here in Southeast Connecticut, where there's a 40-ish couple who are burned out from working, debt, raising 3 kids. They both work full-time, and they're falling out of love, and a little bit of tension. Well, they go on a romantic adventure to rekindle their romance and passion. And there's familiar sights here and in southeastern Connecticut, the Morgan, the Nautilus, and then Cape Cod, Fenway Park, a lot of New England scenery, the story centers around. So it's just a fun, light read. Nothing earth-shattering, but it will also make a good movie.
Yeah.
So then finally, certainly not least, is my novel Convergent. Original story was written more than 20 years ago. And this story has some far-reaching embedded ideas that are really scientific facts centered around spirituality and bringing the ideas of God and science into the same factual idea. But the story, it's actually a story. It's a drama, it's a thriller, and working with this Hollywood producer, we came up with the genre biblical science fiction, which is actually a good description of what the core of the story is. And he and several other people in the company that I'm working with said, we don't think there's ever been a story, a movie or a book that really is this genre. So this might be an original market or original niche. So it's 2 separate stories. One of them does take place 2,000 years ago, and one takes place now. A contemporary science teacher who's talking about these original ideas. And the chapters are intertwined, they're alternating. And we find out through the science fiction that it's all been one story, and the ideas come together at the end, but it's a thriller. There's a bad guy, there's some disturbing scenes, there's a little bit of light humor and some other softer, easier scenes. But generally, it's intended to be thought-provoking and put some clarity around some far-reaching ideas that make us understand that we're all the same. We all have the same goals and the same origins, and we need to start realizing that instead of focusing on the differences between us. So that came out a few years ago, and that's the one I'm working with the Hollywood producer. His name is Josh Malkin, about adapting this to a movie screenplay, a script. And so I can tell you about how that's going.
Yeah, I'd love, because we talked about that before. I've often, we talked about it. I've often wanted a Castle Christmas. I thought it would make a beautiful, like Hallmarky kind of.
It is
Christmas
a Hallmark story, and it's based in Connecticut. It should be one of those films that Hallmark,
I think
or
so.
Lifetime is filming here.
But I'm excited about. I'm so excited for you about putting this project together. I mean. So tell me, how did it start? How did you?
The connection actually started with Kappa. One of our guest speakers that we had for I think it was one of our Zoom meetings, was a company named Voyage. And they are a whole network of producers that work in Hollywood looking for people like me that can bring some original ideas and original stories that otherwise wouldn't have any chance of getting into the industry, which I definitely did not. I live 3,000 miles away. Nobody knows who I am. My books are all published and on Amazon and other places. But what they do is I basically hire them, and I would describe it as a very intense mentoring, tutoring, or a collaboration, where I already had my story. I had a pretty significant part of my story. Well, it was already done. It's published as a book. He and I had already adapted it to a movie screenplay. You can see the format of a movie screenplay on the screen. And I'll tell you a couple quick things about that. First of all, there's a few very good software programs that are almost required to make the format of a movie screenplay. You can see that there's a scene heading, and where at the very top it says Lawrence Living Room Night. There's some components of a scene heading, either interior or exterior, inside or outside, where it is. It could be a town, it could be a building, it could be a specific room of one of the scene settings of the movie, and night and day. All scene headings have those three components, and you might put in other information about if it happened in the past, or if it had, some other component, and you could put sunset or dusk or some other information. So every movie or every scene has a scene heading, and then the words are action. There's an action component, and those are written much like we write prose in a book, where you describe in as few words as possible the events that are happening in that scene. And the dialogue, you can see in the middle, it's highly indented. Each character is described or named, and then what they're saying. That turns out to be a very key component of every screenplay. So those are all and you can add other information. You could see this particular scene, part of it is a newscaster on the TV, and you could put in other things. It might be if they see a sign, the printing on the sign, or
Right.
I have a scene in the license plate. So there's a very specific technical requirement that screenplays have to have. And they need to be 120 pages and not one page more. Unless somebody like Quentin Tarantino is writing his own story and producing and directing the movie, then he can do whatever he wants. But for me, 120 pages.
That's what they want from you. 120 pages.
It translates fairly close to 1 minute of screen time for each page of a script. And so 120 pages is a 2-hour movie.
So when you're writing certain scenes, do you try to clip them in a minute? I mean, is that your,
The scenes don't have to be a minute. They can be several minutes long. But you have to, the hardest part, or the most labor-intensive, most creative part of this exercise was taking 250 pages of novel and writing it in the format you saw, 120 pages of script. And so the key part is being as efficient with your words as possible. So you may have a lot of description and you talk about all the things that the characters are doing. He walked slowly, went around the corner, you could do a long descriptive sentence of the action that's happening in the book. But in a screenplay, you might have to go from 3 lines down to 8 words.
Right.
Just to get it as concise as possible.
See, I was just thinking that because I know a lot of times in my books, I spend a lot of writing, a lot of words on the description, setting the scene.
Right.
So as I want people to see that scene as I see it, like a room in the castle, or a spot on the ferry, or a place in town, kind of thing. But it would seem to me like if you have a visual, you don't need to put in all that.
You almost can't. You have to just paint a very broad stroke picture, and then once people like the director and the actors and other technical people get their hands on it, they have some interpretation, some flexibility of how they're going to depict it. So it's, in a way, you have to relinquish some of your creativity and your freedom. The story is still there. And one of the key things Joshua did, he read my story, and he said, this is, the beginning to end, this is very strong. This is a good framework and a good content of a story. But there's a few things that need some enhancement. The main character needs more reason to want to do this, or at the ending, it slows down too much. It needs to build and build and build. His whole quest to express these ideas and why he's going to do it needs to kind of build to a crescendo right at the end. And so it required me, I had to take out a few scenes. I had to enhance some scenes. I had to add a few scenes. And that's what I've been working on for the last 3 months.
Right.
And I just gave him the final version of it just 2 days ago. And I have a call with him in about 2 hours
Nice.
to go through what I've turned into him and see how he feels about this now, if I'll need to add some more scenes, or if it's pretty close, might need a tweak here and there. Originally, when I had added all the scenes and I had this complete screenplay, it was 136 pages. So the last 10 days or so, edit, 120 pages. I got it to.
You know, that must be a tough thing. I was, to take out scenes or delete parts, but keep the story going in the direction you want to go in.
Yes, it is. This one, it's a little complicated because of the alternating time frames, and they're, people 2,000 years ago are talking. I just, I have them speaking Aramaic, but I don't have it translated. I have the text in English. I footnoted. They're speaking Aramaic, but different syntax, different inflection, and they don't have a lot of the adjectives and the words that we know and understand. So when the science fiction component of it is confronting the characters 2,000 years ago, they don't know what it is, and so I had to write the interpretation of what they see, how they would react to it from what they would know 2,000 years ago. I kind of did that, and it's sort of been a tweak here and there as for each iteration of the story. So I think that part of it's pretty clean, came together okay. But there's a few things with the main characters. This part is a little disconnected, or this one seems a little out of place. So those were the kind of things that I really tried to polish to as the efficiency of this story when I'm writing it, and getting it in as few words as possible to fit onto this format that the producer and anybody else will need to read and see in the industry. So I have this call. There's another key component of this process working with Joshua, that there's a cover sheet. It's called a one-pager. Joshua's going to try and network and sell it to studios to see if they would like to hear more. They don't read the whole script. What they read would be, if you were applying for a job, the only thing that a company would see is your resume, right? So a 2-page summary of your whole life. Well, the one-pager is a 1-page summary of the movie. You have the title, you have the genre, you have something called a log line, which is a 1-sentence summary of the plot. And then the rest of 1 page, you have to condense the whole story into a summary. So we worked on getting this 1-pager as succinct and as clean as we could, and got it to a good place about 2 weeks ago. He liked, I just did a little bit here and there to make that read as smoothly as possible, but still give enough information that it would interest a studio to read it and be interested to read more. So the 1-pager's ready. He'll start networking that to studios.
Now, on the 1-pager, you do the summary of the story, though. I mean, you do the beginning to the end, right?
You do.
You do tell the ending, right?
Yeah, I told the ending, and it's not like you can't leave it wide open like a cliffhanger.
Like you do on the back of a book, so people are interested, but they want to read the book, right?
I did that, actually. I have
that would be my instinct,
the big
too.
reveal at the end. So spoiler alert: don't read the 1-pager if you want if you want to be surprised with the movie, how the movie ends. So I did that, and like I said, he's got that. That's what he is going to set to try and sell, to network to studios. And at first he thought independent studios and maybe streaming services might be the best target production companies for this.
Well, it's kind of amazing to me now how much streaming services, Amazon, Netflix, they're making their own movies.
They are.
They're making a lot of them.
And some of them have pretty high production value.
Yeah.
I Don't Look Up, I thought, was one of the better, more entertaining movies to come out in the last couple of years.
Right.
And they, major stars.
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Meryl Streep. Big names.
Yep.
And good humor and very, very sarcastic depiction of our society and how we would react to things. So
Yeah.
they're not, they're not backroom studios. They're very major production companies now. So if, that would be fine. That would be great if they're interested. So if they read the one pager and they do want to hear more, the next thing they will ask for is the script and the screenplay, and they read that whole thing, and you might do a face-to-face pitch. That would be more like an interview. I'd be happy to do that. I probably won't, but if that's asked of me and required, I would be very prepared to do that. Talk face-to-face with any production company that wants to hear more. And a little plug for Toastmasters, which I've been a member of for 7 years now with the Mystic Aquarium. Being able to speak publicly on camera or in front of people or strangers at conferences like we talked about, did professional talks at educational conferences for 45 minutes to teachers and parents, trying to tell them stories that make their kids want to investigate math and science more.
Right.
So that's a little bit of an aside, but thanks, Toastmasters. So if the face-to-face pitch or reading the script and the content of the script, really, the thing Josh pointed out to me, Joshua, is that an actor has to want to do this.
Right.
So if you want a major person like Leonardo, you can see in the book cover, the character, I told the artist, make him look like Bradley Cooper.
Yep.
Right? So
Yep.
if Bradley Cooper wants to play this role, he's got to want to do it.
One quick question for you. We only got a couple minutes left, but I got to know, because I know what I would do in this situation. So if they did take your script and they're willing to pay you for your script,
Yep.
what if they changed it all around? What if they, in your eyes, ruined it?
And then it would be ruined.
Yep.
There's some core ideas in this that the story is built around.
Right.
Those have to be in there, or the story does not hold up.
Well, you know what? I know, but I guess I'm just saying, until you get to that point where you're big enough, like Stephen King or somebody, to say, well, no, we're not going to do it like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a thing. I'm just saying, it's something that you have to a chance you take.
I'm very aware of that.
It's like any publisher, though, same thing.
Right.
Right? We can sell our book to a publisher, they can change it all around. We can't say nothing. So,
There's a component of the story that has to remain there.
Well,
to make it tenable.
I'm telling you, I can't tell you how much I'm rooting for it, because I think that this would make such a great, thought-provoking movie. I just think it would be one of the better things I've seen in a long time. So, good luck, Larry.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much.
That's all for Books and Beyond this time, and we'll see you the next time. Take care.